Hi, I'm Leigh Pond. This is Trout with Leigh. We're here at Chigborough Fisheries again today, and I'm with one of my best mates, Tim Joyce, resident coach on the water. And we're here today to show you a few different ways of casting. Now, Tim, you teach a lot of people to cast yourself.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most important thing as far as casting's concerned?
Presentation, rhythm.
Yeah.
Rhythm, timing, without a doubt. Initially, when people first learn how to fly cast, there's always a rush because they want to rush to get that fly out to the fish. And there's also this constant drive for distance. And both those things combined don't offer the best casting practice.
Yeah.
So it's usually the rhythm, usually the timing. It's taking that rush out of it. Because you know and I know that this game is all about presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll catch as many fish on a well-presented fly 2 rod lengths out as you will trying to belt out a fly line right to the middle of the lake.
I will say one thing, though, being competition anglers as we are,
It's a different situation, yeah.
that we probably pick up a lot more. I mean, let's put it this way, this is not going to be a masterclass on casting.
No. This is the basics. We're going to cover
Exactly,
the basics.
yeah.
Yeah, it's us two. We're only going to cover the basics, yeah.
But, you know, being a competition angler, there's certain disciplines that you need to do or you have to do because you start off around the lake at one point, the wind's blowing really hard in one way.
Yeah.
And as you work your way around the lake, you've got to change your style of casting, and you might be casting over the left shoulder, the right shoulder. You've got the wind blowing in your face, it's behind you.
Absolutely, yeah. We don't have the choice. As a comp angler, when you have a peg draw,
Yeah.
you're going to be facing the wind. You're going to have the wind off your least favourable side at some point in the day. So you've just got to be able to cope with that. And it's not bad practice, actually, for your day-to-day angler coming into this sport or improving in this sport to take an hour or so on a bank that isn't as comfortable as, say, having the wind off your back or off your leading shoulder might be. So to practice your back casting or practice casting into the wind. Often, those places are the places least fish in the lake as well. Predominantly people are right-handed. I think it's 6 to 1 that they outnumber people right-handed to left-handed. So that bank where off your left shoulder is always well visited. The bank where the wind's off your back is always busy. We know that because it's comfortable, it's easy.
Of course.
But how many fish are going to creep up and away? You know what fish are like. When you get pressure on one area, they're just going to move away from it and find an area with less flies, less pressure. So it does pay to have all that in your armoury, without a doubt. Yeah.
So today we can show quite a few different techniques. I mean, you've got your normal overhead casting, obviously.
Yeah.
But then, you know, we can do maybe a steeple cast. Show a double haul even.
Yeah, the single hauling and double hauling is something that we use all the time. Pretty subconsciously nowadays, you just do it on autopilot.
Absolutely.
The beauty of the single and the double haul is it just energises that line and it guarantees turnover. So on a day like today, it's absolutely flat comp. Like Mill Pond out there today, turnover is going to be an issue, especially if you're fishing with a team of flies. You need to get that fly pushed over, and by adding the haul into it, it just increases line speed, pops that fly over, will give you your turnover. Also, when casting into the wind, which is going to be difficult to demonstrate today because there's not a breath of it, that wind's always pushing your cast back at you. So by using the single haul and the double haul to increase that line speed, again, you're forcing turnover, which is so important. You don't want that fly line landing in a heap with your leader. You know, and I know that. That fly line's a spook zone. You want that leader to pop away and that fly to pop away from your fly line. So yeah, single hauling, double hauling, definitely. We'll have a look at that.
Especially in this type of conditions when it is flat calm. I mean, sometimes you're going to sort of like stop your cast short.
Yeah.
So that you're going to cast out and then maybe stop it short. Yeah. So that it just turns that fly over at that last minute.
Almost like, if you were using a course fishing terminology, it's like feathering down. When you're feathering your casting and you're feathering down to make that all straighten out. It's exactly the same with this, isn't it? Yeah. Exactly. It's finding that sweet spot and then trying to resist the urge to go for the extra 10 feet each time. And that's where people come a cropper a lot.
You try that extra 10 or foot or whatever it is, and it ends up in a heap. So you don't achieve anything at all.
Especially when you've got a multiple fly set up on it, all just like that. You're like, oh God, here we go. Yeah. But so we can play around with that this morning as well. The roll cast is another cast. It's a great get out of jail card. It's a great for when you fluff a cast. It's brilliant for when you're fishing up against obstructions. We're talking about the competition circuit where you have areas where you haven't got that room to push a nice big back cast back, where the roll cast just lets you achieve a cast and a bit of distance without any back cast at all. It's a cast you use a lot in the rivers. I mean, that's where it was developed, wasn't it? When you're walking down the middle of rivers and streams and you haven't got any room to do the back cast. It's also a great cast for aerialising that fly line, loading the rod to get it all started and get it going. It's just another shortcut.
Well, we can show that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can show that. I mean, you know, a lot of these, we're not going to try and tell people how to suck eggs, but you know, there's a lot of people out there that I'm sure will be quite interested in some of the
I hope so.
techniques and
some of these things people
casts that we can show you today. So let's get out on the water and
after having a coffee,
you can show me how it's done, Timothy. Tim, let's start off with the overhead cast.
No problem at all, Leigh. It's your bread and butter overhead cast. Nice and smooth, unhurried, unrushed. Nice bit of turnover, away she goes. That's all you need. Rod tip down, straighten out, and you're ready to fish.
Almost looks like you've done it before.
Nah, bit of practice, eh? Yeah, nothing to it. I think the real key with the overhead casting is just getting that tempo right and trying to refrain from going too fast and overcooking it and overpowering things. That's usually where people come a cropper with the overhead cast. It's just a nice, simple, get that going. It is more difficult when you've got a lot of wind blowing. It can alter things. And away she goes. Lovely bit of turnover there. Perfect.
But I guess the other thing you've got to bear in mind is in getting the balance of the tackle right.
Oh yeah.
As in matching the line up to the rod.
Yeah, matching the line with the rod. So most rods and lines, they're all rated. They've all got this rating on them, as we all know. All the information's printed on there. 7-weight rod, pair it with a 7-weight line. There's no need to go up a line, and you certainly don't want to go down the line on a rod. So some people do like to put an 8-weight line onto a 7-weight rod. You shouldn't need to nowadays. Most rods are rated. You should be able to pair it up with a line that's rated at the same rating.
Perfect balance. I mean, that was going out absolutely.
Also the balance at the other end as well for your turnover. When you've got your team of flies on, heaviest point fly on the point, heaviest fly, bulkiest fly on the point of the cast, and then smaller flies as you stagger up, as you know yourself. So that point fly wants to ping out, wants to turn over. It's so important. If that cast itself is unbalanced, it's a world of hurt. Yeah.
While we're on that subject, do you want to just show us how to just do a cast and stop it short in these type of conditions?
It's
really
perfect, absolutely perfect.
More so for multiple flies, I guess.
Yeah, and longer leaders as well, of course. So you just get that cast whipped up, and when you're happy with that cast working, instead of shooting the rest of that line as you would normally do at that point, you let the line and stop. Just stop that line. It's just a dead stop with your left hand. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll try and do that again and just exaggerate that stop for you. So just get that line going, get that nice loops working, get the energy there, and then what we're going to do, instead of shooting all the line, we're going to stop that line there, and it just stops and forces turnover, so that all goes over the way it should do.
Well, the way I've done it myself in the past is actually just wound a little bit more line in.
Brilliant. Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're casting at the full line.
That's it.
Straight out. I've wound a little bit of line in and actually stopped it on the reel itself.
So I've just taken about 10 foot of line up there.
Yep.
So it's a little bit shorter than what we were casting. As a normal cast, I can just shoot it, bang, it hits the reel and it turns over.
That's it.
That's the way I would do it as well, to be honest. You approach your new spot, you have a cast that's normally short, you have a second cast that's normally long, your third one you reel up a bit and you're hitting that spot.
It's going to hit that reel and just
every time
automatically turn those flies over.
That's the idea anyway. Yeah.
Great, that's good, I like that.
Yep, so that's it. Yeah, they're the first 2 bits of your overhead casting. We've talked about the wind direction, haven't we?
Yes.
And where the wind's coming from. So the 2 directions that we like, you and I are both right-handed casters.
Yep.
So obviously wind coming off your left shoulder is brilliant. Keeps everything out here and away from you. Keeps your fly line out here, keeps you, importantly, the flies away from your face.
Yeah.
And it's all being blown out here. And it's the same when the wind's off your back as well. You can angle yourself so that fly line and that rod and everything is outside. It's always tracking outside your body. It's nice and safe. But there are plenty of times when you don't have that. You can't get in those sort of positions and you have that wind coming off your right shoulder or coming straight into your face. And you can still fish in those positions. You've just got to adjust your cast ever so slightly. We're very difficult to show anything with wind coming in your face today. It's absolutely flat calm. But the principle behind it,
still the same principle.
It's still the same principle. You've just got to adjust your cast ever so slightly. So we say the wind is least resistant down here, the lower we go. So when that wind's blowing in your face, you need to tuck that forward cast down underneath the wind to get it under the wind to get turnover. And I always say to people, yeah, fish into the wind. I love fishing into the wind. You love fishing into the wind.
Absolutely.
Because we know there's fish there. There's food being pushed up that into the lake there. There's plenty of fish there. There's a nice bit of commotion on the surface as well. So the fish are nice and settled. And they're often very, very close in. And it's probably the least fish spot on the lake because nobody wants to go and fish into the wind.
We all want to fish in the comfortable spots.
Exactly that. So you just got to say to yourself, I can fish into the wind. I can only fish half my normal distance and be happy with that. The fish are going to be in close in. And by adjusting that cast slightly, and I'll show you now if you'd like. So we'll just have a go with this one. And I'll just show you what I mean by adjusting that front cast. I'm going to cast this one into the wind, this one.
You are?
Yeah, this one's going to go into the wind, this one.
All right, crack on then.
That's all right. So the back cast remains the same, remains up here as normal, but the front cast you need to push it and get it right underneath the wind. And if you're touching the water, so be it. You're not that worried because you've got a lot of commotion into the wind.
There's a lot of disturbance anyway.
A lot of disturbance to disguise everything in the cast, but what you're getting is you're getting that good turnover underneath the wind all the time. Where the bank allows, and it doesn't allow you here, you can also cast sideways on, but you've got a raised bank here, it will cause problems. It's the same effect underneath there. If that wind's coming off your right shoulder, and blowing into that right shoulder, say it was blowing across here now and blowing my right shoulder, it would be dangerous to cast. What we would do,
pushing it into you.
Switch positions.
Right.
And turn around, open the body right up so you're nice and sideways onto your spot. You've brought the wind round onto your safe side, onto your left-hand shoulder here. And then all we're going to do is...
safety is obviously paramount.
Safety is paramount. When you've got flies there, you've got size 10 hook floating around, and you'll notice all the time, hat and glasses all the time when you fly casting. All I've done is I've brought this cast round to the correct side. I'm still releasing line up here on the front cast till I get that point there I think that's ready to go. And then I just turn round and release it behind me.
And you can still double haul that as well, of course.
I can double haul that and I can single haul that to get your turnover as well. It looks like a bit of a trick cast, it isn't. It just illustrates that your front and back cast are completely the same. The cast is the same all the way around, all the way through.
Okay, let's go into the roll cast.
Okay, roll cast is a little used cast actually, and I found it extremely helpful, extremely useful. It's got so many different applications. It's a great way of starting a cast, it's a great way of finishing a cast to make sure you're hanging your flies, you're fishing your flies in complete, and it's also a great cast for when you've got obstructions behind you and you're not able to actually lean back, because as fly anglers we need to be able to lean back and chuck that line behind us like so. Well, you're not always in those positions. Sometimes you're up against bushes or tree lines, especially when you're fishing wilder waters, let's say. These are all nicely manicured, they're made for fly casting,
of course,
but not all lakes are like that. So with the roll cast, it's just simply a roll, as the name would suggest. It's a shorter amount of line, 2-3 rod lengths of line out. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring that rod up into this position here, and bring it up to a shoulder, and that's about as far back as that line's going to travel. You make this lovely loop here. This is the D
like
loop.
A D almost, I guess.
It is the D loop. They call that the D loop or the delivery loop. It's the offset capital D. And from there, all you're going to do is give that little flick forward, and it just allows you to fish. And with a series of these roll casts, using the surface tension in that water, you can actually get out a reasonable amount of distance without having to aerialise any line behind you, because it's just stopping there. That's as far back as it needs to go.
If we had a little bit of breeze behind us, that would really go out.
Would be ideal. In fact,
the
little bit of breeze we have got this morning is actually coming on our face, so it's just not getting the turnover that you need for it.
But no, that's demonstrating it really nicely.
It's a great little cast to use, and people should be using that more and more in all their casts. It's also a good get out of jail cast.
And this particular cast was the cast that I grew up with. Because I started on grappling many years ago, we never had such a thing as a full line. My dad always said that we just had shooting heads. That was it. So the first cast I learned was a double haul, believe it or not.
It's exactly the same way as me. I was taught by a chap on Hanningfield 30 plus years ago, and it was a homemade shooting head lines.
Exactly homemade.
And I think on your first lesson you were learning how to single haul and double haul.
Yeah.
Just because you had to with those lines to gain line speed, to get the line speed.
But plus everything was distance. You know, that was all it was all about in those days. Which,
but the hauling has its benefits, and it definitely helps by increasing line speed.
Yes.
Through the cast, you can aid turnover. You can give yourself you can help that line turn over and those flies to flip forward. If you've got that face on wind as well, it helps you again, increases line speed. punches that line into the wind. And if you are going for full-on distance, again, the increase in line speed, because there's only so much of this line you can aerialise before you hit the dead spot. You've got all the head of the running line out.
It just becomes less effective.
Yeah, and you can't cope with it. So by putting that haul into it, it does allow you to aerialise a little bit more line as well. So quite easily, quite simply, the single haul is either off the front or the back cast. You're just allowing that hand to travel up to the rod, and you're effectively what you're doing is you're shortening the line at the critical point of load. So when that rod's loaded, you're actually shortening the line. And you can do it on the front or the back cast. So the double haul is this. And so on the front and the back cast, the left hand travels up to the rod, and backwards and forwards. That's a pull and a pull. And you just see that line speed increasing. See those loops increasing? Bang!
And look at that, just smack straight out.
It's
straight onto the reel.
Yeah,
Bing.
Snap, and it goes over and it turns over the way it needs to go. It's a little bit more difficult to control because as you're up that line speed, it just wants to go.
But it's a timing thing as well.
It's very much a timing thing. It's letting that left hand drift up to the rod each time on the front and the back cast. Let it drift up, and then just that little pull, line speed's increased.
Lovely. Lovely.
And you can continue to get distance, especially in a flat calm, to be casting a distance like that.
That's exactly what you want today, isn't it? It's an
ideal
cast for a day like today, really, isn't it?
Very useful, very handy. At least in your armoury, you want to be able to learn how to single haul.
Right, what I'd like you to try and demonstrate now, Tim, is one that I've used in many times in competitions. And it's when you get into a situation where you've got an obstruction or a tree behind you, you still want to get that line out there. Now, I've used this particular cast many times before, and I've always called it a steeple cast. But what you're really doing is just a normal overhead cast, but you're punching it up into the air.
On your back cast there to try and get yourself over an obstruction like that,
Exactly. We'll use that tree as our demonstration,
So it is just a change in that cast, and again, it can be quite a messy looking cast, but it can be effective, and it can at least get your line out there. And as we've discussed, the more time you've got to fly in the water, the more chance you've got of catching a fish. So it's simply all you're trying to do is you're going to stop that back. You're not going to lean into the back cast. You're going to let that fly and try and stop it up there. Bring that arm up, get that fly up there, get it over the top, and away you go.
Got it. So you're going to probably get less distance, I guess.
Got a lot less distance because you can't wind it up.
Because it's the angle you're coming back down at. You're coming down at an angle, aren't you, I guess?
Yeah. To the extreme. I mean, you've seen some river anglers doing it when they get down in the big spate rivers.
Yeah.
And they've got a flat bank behind them, and they push that cast right up into the air. It's a horrible looking cast. It's up there and down. But it's effective. You can get yourself a line out.
As long as you can get a line out and get into the water.
So it's just been adaptable with this casting.
Yeah.
It's just trying to work out, keep everything safe to where you can, keep everything outside the body, and have that wind off your leading shoulder there. Hat and glasses all the time, and just think about what you want the line to do, and think about any obstructions and work yourself around them. And don't worry too much about how it looks. There was too much concern over years about how fly casting, that you must look better than the gentleman 10 feet down from you on the hallowed banks of the River Test. As long as it's effective, as long as it's safe, and as long as it's working, that's all you need.
Well, thanks for joining us once again, and a big thanks to Tim.
My pleasure, mate.
Been really good, mate.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's always good fun out and about.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a bit chilly this morning.
Yeah, well, you've got to put up with the winter fishing, but the fishing's worth putting it up.
You was doing more work than
Yeah, I'm actually quite warm now.
Thanks for joining us once again. Please keep those messages coming. Put them down there. We do like to read them. And don't forget to subscribe. Push that button down there for us. Again, Tim, thanks once again.
More than welcome, mate.
See you again, guys.
No trouble at all.
Tight lines. Keep safe.